In Star Trek's narrative, Amanda Grayson is a unique and interesting character. She is the human wife of the Vulcan Sarek, biological mother to Spock, stepmother to Sybok, and adoptive mother to Michael Burnham. Since Spock was the first human-Vulcan hybrid to survive past infancy, raising him was somewhat difficult for his parents, since they didn't know what exactly to expect and how many human and/or Vulcan traits he would display. It has been questioned whether Amanda truly did the best she could for Spock and later Michael, and I decided to do my own analysis. Spock's mother is mentioned directly in the Star Trek The Original Series Season 1 episode The Naked Time, in which Spock, under the effects of polywater intoxication, realizes that he never in his life told his mother that he loved her and becomes deeply upset by the fact. From this, the audience can speculate that even though Spock is half human, he must have been taught to live his life without emotion to the point that he did not express it even to his human mother. We first meet Amanda and her Vulcan husband Sarek in the Star Trek The Original Series Season 2 episode Journey to Babel. In the episode, multiple Federation delegates are being escorted to a meeting place by the Enterprise, including Sarek, Vulcan ambassador to the Federation, who has brought his wife along with him. At some point in the episode, it becomes evident that Sarek's health is failing, and he will need a blood transfusion which only Spock can provide due to the rarity of their blood type, though the procedure will be risky to them both. However, Kirk is injured and put out of commission, so Spock takes over command of the ship, which he views as more important than helping his father according to Vulcan logic, given the tense situation with murders on the ship and a possible outside attacker. When confronting Spock about this and insisting that he turn over command to someone else, Amanda says that she will hate Spock for the rest of her life if he lets Sarek die, and she even hits Spock. It's undeniably a difficult situation, but children don't owe their parents anything, and Spock was doing what he believed was for the needs of the many, which outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Spock would most likely have been willing to help with the transfusion, whether or not the recipient was his father, if the circumstances were different. Amanda initially states in the episode that she agrees with the Vulcan way of logic and insinuates that it's better than how humans live, but she questions this view when Spock cites logic as his reason for not taking part in his father's life-saving procedure. Either way, hitting Spock was not the appropriate response, even though her emotional outburst was out of worry for her husband more than anything else. We also learn from the episode that Spock and Sarek have not been on speaking terms for 18 years because Sarek did not approve of Spock's decision to join Starfleet. At least in Amanda's view, this could have partially influenced Spock's hesitation to turn away from his command duties in order to assist Sarek. Even though it doesn't happen on screen, one could assume that later on, when the issue was resolved, she probably apologized to Spock for hitting him. One has to ask, in those 18 years in which father and son were not speaking, did Amanda ever try to get the two of them speaking again? Amanda also recalls seeing that Spock was being bullied by other Vulcan boys for his human heritage when he was a child, and that she cried for him. But did she ever try to do anything about the bullying, such as talking to the other boys' parents or teachers? Is it possible that because she was human, they dismissed her concerns? One thing to note is that in an episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which I will discuss later on, Amanda says that she was shunned by Vulcan mothers, so it is entirely possible that she tried all that she could think to do but was never taken seriously by anyone who could most directly intervene in the situation. In Star Trek The Animated Series, the audience is given their first look directly into Spock's childhood in the episode Yesteryear, in which adult Spock travels back in time in order to save the life of his 7-year-old self. Amanda does have a minor role in the episode in which she states her approval of the Vulcan way of life, but admits that it is demanding. Later in the episode, when 7-year-old Spock declares that he chooses to follow the Vulcan way of life, Amanda briefly looks sad, but she doesn't say anything. Amanda also appears in the movie Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, where she observes Spock as he works to regain his memory. Amanda reminds Spock that emotions are just as important as logic, that being human is just as much a part of him as being Vulcan, and that he is alive thanks to the actions his friends took for him out of emotion, whether or not they may seem logical. Eventually, Star Trek Discovery provides a new and significant insight into Spock's childhood, that he grew up with a human adoptive sister, Michael Burnham. Amanda does make an effort to balance caring for the two, different as they may be from one another. Spock is her biological child, but she doesn't love him any more than Michael because of that. On the other hand, Michael is entirely human like she is, but Amanda doesn't love her any more than Spock because of that. Amanda does later admit, however, that she did not feel as free to give motherly love and affection to Spock as she did to Michael, stating that she wasn't a real mother to him. This also falls in line with Spock likewise never telling his mother that he loved her. Granted, Amanda probably recognized that as a human, Michael would require more emotional attention, especially as Michael was dealing with the trauma of losing her birth parents with whom she was very close. Amanda was hesitant to treat Spock the same way because she and Sarek wanted to raise him according more closely to Vulcan tradition, likely so that he would gain the acceptance of his Vulcan peers, even though Spock himself was half human. Amanda also said that she didn't want to confuse Spock by being the only person in his life to display rather than suppress emotion. However, this probably only further confused him, such as during an instance when he as a child walks in on Amanda being affectionate with Michael. Amanda does not instruct Michael not to show emotion in front of Spock, letting her make the decision of how she will act around him on her own. Whether Amanda knew it or not, Sarek wanted Michael to demonstrate and teach empathy towards Spock. Spock does eventually tell his sister that he loves her as an adult, but only during a situation in which both are correct in assuming that it will be the last time they will ever see each other. Discovery also reveals that Spock has a condition similar to dyslexia, latokterai, which he inherited from his mother. When Spock was a child attending school, Amanda did notice that he was struggling and none of his Vulcan teachers seemed willing to help him, so she took it upon herself to give him the needed assistance that he was not receiving. Having once been a school teacher herself likely helped her along in her efforts. It's never stated whether Amanda is dyslexic herself or if the condition simply came from her side of the family. If she was dyslexic, though, that may have inspired her to become a teacher because she would know firsthand what it was like to have special needs, and she wanted to help any children with similar conditions that she may come across during her teaching career. This further convinces me that Amanda did try to do something about Spock's bullies but wasn't successful. Clearly, she didn't view Spock's personal struggles as inevitable. Spock states that he had nightmares as a child, and Amanda taught him to draw the things he was afraid of in order to confront and better understand them. In one scene during a flashback to his childhood, he is seen drawing a three-dimensional dragon-like monster. Amanda also read him Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, believing that his experiences with latokterai and being the only half-human Vulcan would make the main character's story relatable to him. Amanda later read Michael the same story, and eventually read to both children at the same time rather than separately. When young Spock came to his parents in the middle of the night saying that he saw the red angel that told him where Michael had run away to, Amanda heeded his warning and convinced Sarek to do the same. Sarek assumed that Spock had used logic to determine where Michael was, but Amanda believed that Spock may have really had a vision like he described, whether it was a dream or not. On the day of Michael's graduation from the Vulcan Science Academy, Amanda privately gifts Michael with a physical copy of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, reminding Michael to nurture her human side even as she has been raised according to Vulcan customs. Amanda also recalls that she and Michael went on a mother-daughter trip for Michael's 10th birthday, during which they attended a traditional Earth-style book exchange. When Sarek informs his wife and daughter that the director of the Vulcan Expeditionary Group will not permit Michael to join, Amanda declares that Michael has worked hard for her entire life and is absolutely deserving of such an opportunity, and that Michael not being a Vulcan is irrelevant. Amanda finally realizes that if the director won't listen to Sarek, he most certainly won't listen to her, so the effort to convince him is abandoned by the three family members. Years later, when Spock is accused of murder, Amanda is adamant that he would never do such a thing and helps in the quest to prove his innocence, going so far as to steal his medical file from the psychiatric facility where he was staying. She hides Spock in a crypt with Katra stones so that his presence could not be detected by telepathy, not even from his own father, who was searching for him in order to turn him over to the authorities. When Sarek follows Amanda and Michael into the crypt and learns of the situation, Amanda calls him out for several things, including not trusting that Spock must be innocent and never noticing his Latokterai-related struggles when he was a child. She also points out the flaws in the way that they both raised Spock, that the two of them had a child out of love, yet Spock paid the price for being different due to his mixed heritage. Later on, Sarek and Amanda come to Michael aboard the USS Discovery when her connection to Sarek through his Katra allows him to sense that she is in emotional distress. When her foster parents arrive and she tells them of her plans to go to the future, knowing that she cannot return, they support her decision and give her a heartfelt goodbye, during which Michael thanks them for helping her put her life back together when they adopted her after she'd lost everything. Once her foster parents have left, Michael learns that Spock intends to go with her to the future. If Sarek and Amanda had known of Spock's plans, they definitely would have given him the same farewell as they did with Michael. Spock is not able to follow Michael anyway, and Amanda later comes aboard the Enterprise to comfort Spock in their mutual grief over the departure of their family member. Amanda also appears in the Strange New Worlds episode Charades, which I alluded to earlier. The plot involves her helping Spock through a traditional Vulcan engagement dinner while Spock has been temporarily turned fully human. Spock's mother offers to teach him more about his human side, saying that she should have done it for him a long time ago. At this point in time, Sarek and Spock are still not speaking, so Sarek does not attend the dinner even though both of T'Pring's parents do. When T'Pril and Sevet harshly judge Amanda simply because she is human, Spock tells them how proud he is of her for being brave enough to endure the challenges of being a human living among Vulcans. As Amanda puts it, it isn't easy being a human who loves a Vulcan. It goes without saying that Spock and Michael faced prejudice as well, especially considering that the learning center they attended was bombed by logic extremists. She likely declines to mention Spock not communicating with Sarek because it was not an appropriate time to be pressing the issue when the present situation had given them enough to deal with. It also seems that she doesn't want to force the issue for fear of making the situation between father and son worse, or she simply didn't know what she could do for them upon not fully understanding their interpersonal conflict. Knowing the events of Star Trek Discovery could help make Amanda's actions and journey to Babel a bit more understandable. Even though it's been several years, Amanda is undoubtedly still silently grieving the loss of Michael, despite knowing it would happen somewhat ahead of time, having been able to say goodbye, and Michael not having actually died. It's also possible that she at one point bonded with Sybok as his stepmother, and learning of him being banished from Vulcan may have caused her similar pain. She may also be silently lamenting the fact that Spock and Sarek still aren't on speaking terms, and that Sarek may die without the two of them ever having made amends. When she learns that Sarek's life is in danger, perhaps the thought of losing her husband after having lost her daughter seemed to her like too much to bear. care, prompting her especially emotional behavior during the events of the episode. Amanda doesn't mention Spock's sister to him, even when the two are alone in Spock's quarters, but most likely because Spock is not allowed to speak about her and Amanda doesn't want to get him in trouble, even though she herself would have impunity for doing so because she is an ambassador's wife. Amanda probably also recognized that it was not the time to bring up that point of shared grief between the three of them, since it would not make the situation any easier. Let's compare Amanda Grayson to Lwaxana Troi, who was overbearing towards her daughter Deanna, but she has previously lost her husband Ian and, we later learn, her eldest daughter Kestra. Although Lwaxana's experiences do make her sympathetic as a character, they don't excuse her actions of being overly controlling of her adult daughter Deanna's life, just as Amanda being concerned for Sarek doesn't excuse her hitting Spock. However, the way Amanda calls out Spock for not considering Sarek's needs is undeniably reminiscent of her doing the same to Sarek for not considering Spock's needs. Amanda's actions consistently prove that she is anything but helpless or submissive. She always stands up for what she believes is right, whether or not she can convince others to listen to her. Amanda says that Michael learned persistence from her after all. So, all things considered, is Amanda Grayson a good mother? I would say yes. At the very least, she put forth genuine effort. She may not be exemplary, and there are definitely some things that she could have done better, but no parent is perfect. Perhaps both she and Sarek should have given more consideration to the wider implications of bringing a hybrid child into the world and raising him the way they did, and later of rather suddenly introducing a foster sibling into his life. What's most important is that she genuinely loved Spock and Michael, both equally, and she always tried to do what she thought was best for them. For all we know, she very likely did the same for Sybok as well. So what do you think? Do you believe Amanda Grayson is a good mother to either one or both of her children? Do you agree with the points I made? Is there anything else you'd want to add? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. I've got plenty more Star Trek videos to come, including one that examines Sarek as a father, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. Live long and prosper, and I'll see you next time.